Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome. In the world of modern hospitality, understanding our guests, well, it really is everything. I'm so pleased to be here to help guide you, the students of Europe Hotel School, on this online learning journey. Together, we're going to dive into a skill that is absolutely crucial, learning how to see the world through your guest's eyes, because that's how we provide truly exceptional service.
And this quote really gets to the heart of it. Every interaction is influenced by the way we perceive the world. Think about that for a second. It's the absolute bedrock of what we do in this global industry. Every single guest who walks through your doors, every colleague you work alongside, they all bring their own unique worldview. And let me be clear, understanding this isn't just some nice-to-have soft skill. Nope. It is a critical professional tool that you need to create genuinely welcoming experiences. So the big question is, how do we get good at this? Well, in this explainer, we're going to break it down into a 4-part journey. First, we'll start with the internal stuff, how you see the world. Then we'll move on to the external side of things, the expressions of culture you can actually see and hear. After that, we'll dig into some of those invisible rules that guide how we all interact. And to wrap it all up, we'll give you a professional mindset to put all of this into practice. Ready? Let's get started. All right, first things first, we have to wrap our heads around this really crucial idea. What you see isn't necessarily what's there. It's not like our brain is taking a perfect high-resolution photograph of reality. Instead, it's more like a picture that's been run through a whole bunch of filters that were created by our entire life experience, especially our cultural upbringing. So yeah, perception is an active process of filtering. And that's exactly why two people can watch the very same thing happen, let's say an interaction at the front desk, and walk away with completely different interpretations. A gesture that you think is super friendly might feel really intrusive to a guest, or that enthusiastic tone of voice you're using. To someone else, it might sound unprofessional, even a bit jarring. It all comes down to that filter. This naturally leads us to a pretty big question, right? If every single one of us is filtering reality, do any of us ever truly see the exact same thing? And the simple answer is, well, no, we don't. And this idea is so important, it brings us to the central metaphor we're going to be using for this whole topic. I want you to imagine you're wearing a pair of glasses. You've been wearing them your whole life, so you probably don't even notice them anymore. That's your cultural lens. You didn't go out and pick the frames or the prescription. They were shaped for you by your family, your education, your whole community. Now, the real trick in hospitality isn't that you have a lens, because, spoiler alert, we all do. The biggest challenge is when we automatically assume that everyone else is looking through the exact same pair of glasses as us. Okay, so we've got a handle on this idea of our internal lens. Now, let's shift gears and look at how that lens shapes the external world. The communication we can actually see and hear. This is where all that awareness starts turning into a really practical, useful skill. This is a really big one. You can basically see a fundamental split in how people communicate around the world. On one hand, you've got what we call low-context communication. Think North America, Western Europe. People tend to be very direct. They say what they mean, and clarity is king. But on the other hand, you have high-context cultures, which you'll find across much of Asia and Latin America. Here, the real message is often found between the lines. It's in the tone, the body language, the shared understanding. A guest from a high-context culture might say something like, "Wow, the music in the lobby is quite energetic," when what they're really saying is, "Could you please turn it down?" Okay, let's take something as simple as eye contact. Seems straightforward, right? Wrong. It can mean completely opposite things depending on where you're from. In many Western cultures, we're taught that making eye contact means you're honest and confident. But in many other cultures, holding a direct gaze, especially with someone older or in a position of authority, can be seen as incredibly rude or even confrontational. So here's a huge takeaway for you. If a guest isn't making eye contact, don't jump to conclusions. It's almost certainly a sign of respect, not dishonesty. And this leads us right into something psychologists call attribution. It's basically our brain's habit of trying to explain why people do the things they do. The problem is, our cultural lens can totally mess up our explanations. Here's a classic example from our world. You see a guest who is very quiet, and your brain immediately thinks, oh no, they must be unhappy or disappointed. But what if, in their culture, being quiet is simply how you show deep respect? That's a huge attribution error, and it happens all the time in hotels. All right, so we've talked about words and body language, but there are other, more invisible forces at play. These powerful, unspoken rules that guide how people behave. Let's dig into 3 of the biggest ones you'll encounter every day: time, personal space, and status.
Let's start with time. Does your guest see time as a straight, unbendable line? That's what we call a monochronic view. For them, schedules are secret. Being on time is a sign of respect. But what about a guest who has a more polychronic view? For them, time is flexible, it's fluid. Building a relationship or finishing a good conversation might be way more important than sticking to a strict schedule. And look, the point here isn't to decide which one is right. It's about knowing the difference so you can manage expectations and avoid a whole lot of frustration for both you and your guest. Okay, next up, personal space. You know that invisible bubble we all have around us? Well, the size of that bubble changes dramatically from culture to culture. In some places, standing close to someone while you talk is a sign of warmth and friendship. In others, keeping a respectful distance is the polite thing to do. So here's a practical tip. If you walk up to a guest and they take a little step back, please don't take it personally. They are not rejecting you. They're just adjusting the space to what feels comfortable and respectful for them. And finally, let's talk about status. This one's huge. In what we call high hierarchy cultures, titles are a big deal. Formality is the name of the game, and you show respect to people based on their position. Then you have low hierarchy cultures, where the ideal is equality, and things are much more informal. Think about it. Calling a guest by their first name might make one person feel super welcome and relaxed, but it could be seen as shockingly disrespectful by someone else. Your job is to figure out which it is and calibrate your level of formality. It's so key. Okay, we've taken a deep dive into the cultural lens, and we've decoded some common behaviors. Now, for our final section, we're going to bring it all home. It's time to shift from just knowing this stuff to actually doing something with it. This is all about building the professional habits that will turn your awareness into truly world-class service. So here's your practical toolkit, broken down into 3 simple steps. Step 1, observe without judgment. When you see a behavior that's new or different, just hit the pause button on your automatic reaction. Get curious instead of critical. Step 2, view differences as neutral. One way isn't better or worse, it's just different. Adopting this mindset is what makes a hotel feel truly welcoming. And finally, step 3, practice active flexibility. This just means making small, conscious tweaks to make your guest feel seen and respected. And really, what this all boils down to is this. Your goal is connection, not correction. This isn't about memorizing a giant rule book for every country on Earth. And it's definitely not about trying to get guests to act the way you think they should. It's simply about building a genuine human connection. Your most powerful tools, the ones that will never fail you, are empathy and respect. They're what turn a potential misunderstanding into a moment of true rapport. And that's what creates an experience a guest will never forget. So as you go forward from here, as you build your amazing careers, I want you to carry this one question with you. How will I adjust my lens today? Because every single guest interaction is a new chance to practice, to learn, and to consciously fine-tune your own perspective. And that is what separates just good service from truly unforgettable world-class hospitality. Thank you.